At the beginning of this year, I decided that 2025 was going to be the year that I finally read all of Proust, and it's kind of changing my life. The night that I started reading In Search of Lost Time, I was convinced that there was a ghost in my house. And I know what you're thinking, okay? Sounds like religious psychosis. I probably need a therapist, not Proust, but hear me out. At the beginning of the year, I was home alone for a couple of weeks because my boyfriend was working in a different city. And this was the first time that I was home alone for so long. And we'd only moved in a couple of months before, so I was still getting used to the sounds of the house, you know. One night I get into bed, it's around 1 a.m. There's no more movement in the street, there are no cars passing by. It's completely quiet, so I'm like, okay, yeah, it's time to go to bed. And I'm laying there in the dark, minding my own business, waiting to fall asleep, when the corridor light, we have a motion sensor light in the corridor, comes on by itself. I get up, I look around, just to make sure that I'm completely alone. Nobody's there, obviously. I go back to bed, I turn off all the lights, and I'm like, don't really feel like sleeping right now, but we're gonna try. And another however many minutes goes by and the light comes on again. I'm thinking to myself, cool. I'm definitely experiencing a haunting and there is no way in hell I can fall asleep now. Eventually I decided that I should probably start reading something until my eyes get tired and then I could maybe go back to sleep. And I have to admit, it's kind of embarrassing for me, literature student, etc. But I definitely picked up Proust because there's a bit of a reputation that precedes this book about it being kind of long and dense, and little did I know that it was going to actually fix my ghost problem. The first chapter of the book is basically an introduction to the way that Marcel, the narrator, remembers all these events from his childhood, and specifically it opens with a description of the house at Cambrai where he and his family used to spend their summers. In terms of the plot, the chapter is about Marcel being a young child and really wanting his mother to come give him a goodnight kiss every night. And every time a visitor came around, this wouldn't happen because the family is embarrassed by the fact that he still needs parental affection, I guess. A lot of the focus in this chapter is on this house and specifically on Marcel's room where he feels like a bit of an intruder. There's this long passage where he describes the fact that the room seems hostile to him, like the clock keeps ticking so loudly as if it doesn't even care that he's trying to fall asleep, or in the corner of the room there is a mirror in a place where he didn't really expect it to be, which freaks him out a little bit. And the ceiling, the room apparently has this sort of pyramid-like ceiling, and it's so high, and no matter how hard he tries, he can't really make his presence fill the room and make the room his. And he talks about how eventually, by virtue of living there day in and day out, he gets over it. From the very first second, I had been mentally poisoned by the unfamiliar odor of the vetiver. Convinced of the hostility of the violet curtains and the insolent indifference of the clock chattering loudly as though I were not there, my mind struggling for hours to dislodge itself, to stretch upwards so as to take the exact shape of the room and succeed in filling its gigantic funnel to the very top, had suffered many hard nights. While I lay at full length in my bed, my eyes lifted, my ear anxious, my nostril restive, my heart pounding, until habit had changed the color of the curtains, silenced the clock, taught pity to the cruel oblique mirror, concealed, if not driven out completely, the smell of the vetiver, and appreciably diminished the apparent height of the ceiling. Habit, that skillful but very slow housekeeper who begins by letting our minds suffer for weeks in a temporary arrangement, but whom we are nevertheless very happy to find, for without habit and reduced to no more than its own resources, our mind would be powerless to make a lodging habitable. So I'm reading this at like 3 a.m. and I'm like, oh my God, I don't have a ghost. I just need to get used to the house. Duh. Another day without going to therapy. What a win. The one part of chapter 1 that stood out to me the most is this one paragraph about Mr. Swan, who is the neighbor at Combray and also a sort of inherited family friend. Essentially, his father used to be very good friends with Marcel's grandparents and his great aunts. It's pretty clear that Mr. Swan really wants to continue honoring the friendship that his father had with Marcel's older relatives. He brings them fruits from his garden and he has conversations with them, but it's pretty clear that he doesn't have an intimate friendship with them. Marcel's relatives, on the other hand, see themselves as a pretty important part of Mr. Swan's social circle, and particularly they enjoy feeling like they have intimate and privileged knowledge of his life and insight into him as a person. I suspect in a way that a lot of older people who have watched somebody grow like to think that they know that person, especially Marcel's great aunt. She seems to be like the type of person who enjoys thinking that she knows people better than they know themselves. She specifically loves to talk about him and the way that he appears in the papers and the woman that he married, whom she doesn't consider good enough for him. But it's pretty clear that in reality, she doesn't actually know him. None of them do. And there is a moment at this stage where Marcel, when he's taking a break from his meltdown about not getting a bedtime kiss, he reflects on the way that Mr. Swan is obviously a lot of different people to all of the different people in his life. And I found this obviously very profound, but also incredibly timely, because at one point he says that our social personalities are a construct in the minds of others, which I found to be super current right now. I feel like over the past decade or so, with social media and celebrity culture and all of this, we've been talking a lot about parasocial relationships and how we feel like we know people that we don't actually know, and how sometimes, especially in fan and stan culture, we feel a certain ownership over people who are actually strangers to us, and yet we feel like we know them better than the people that they live their lives with. This might be a little bit of a rogue parallel, but recently my social media algorithms have been suggesting a lot of Justin Bieber content to me. And I don't know the entire backstory here, and I'm sure nobody apart from him and his wife do, but it's kind of amazing to me how some of his fans and just social media commentators seem to believe that they have more insight into how he feels about his marriage and his child than he does. Anyways, Justin Bieber drama is not the topic of this video. But I just thought it was an interesting parallel, and also super interesting to see that Proust was already thinking and writing about the social identities of people 100 years ago. I think it's pretty amazing, and it really goes to show that everything we could possibly think of has already been thought of before by somebody else. No doubt the Swan who was known at the same period to so many clubmen was quite different from the one created by my great-aunt, when in the evening, in the little garden at Combray, after the 2 hesitant rings of the bell had sounded, she injected and invigorated with all that she knew about the Swan family the dark and uncertain figure who emerged, followed by my grandmother, from a background of shadows, and whom we recognized by his voice. But even with respect to the most insignificant things in life, none of us constitutes a material whole, identical for everyone, which a person has only to go look up as though we were a book of specifications or a last testament. Our social personality is a creation of the minds of others. I have also been thinking about the concept of our social identities in the context of this YouTube channel and this video that I'm making, because I don't typically make vlogs on this channel. All of my videos almost are just commentary videos, which I enjoy making a lot. But I've wanted to make a more slow-paced, more introspective, and in a way, a little bit more creative video for quite some time. But if I'm completely honest with you, I was kind of not scared, but uncomfortable. I was a little bit uncomfortable presenting a different facet of myself to existing subscribers. And to be completely honest, making commentary videos, it's all about other people, right? I'm commenting on what other people are doing. And of course, I am presenting my own point of view, but it is very much outwardly centered, whereas a vlog or a video about your experience reading a book is a lot more personal. And if somebody doesn't like a commentary video or the opinions that I express in a commentary video, I can just kind of shrug that off, like, whatever, it doesn't matter. But if somebody doesn't like this one, I think it's a lot more personal. And I think that part of me was trying to protect me from that experience. I also think that part of me fell prey to this YouTube as a side hustle mentality, where you get bombarded consistently when you're a content creator with advice about making content and growing your audience. And all of these YouTube gurus are always telling you that you should niche down and that you shouldn't confuse your audience and just continue making the same type of content that was successful for you. So it's human nature to sort of fall into the trap of making the same thing that works over and over, the tried and tested thing. But it's also a bit of a prison. So anyways, here I am making a vlog about Proust. I'm considering making this into a little bit of a series, just for fun, just for myself. I will obviously continue to make commentary videos because that is something that I really, really enjoy. But I don't know, I feel like at this point, on top of my opinions about what other people are saying and doing, I also have a bunch of my own stories to share. Maybe going through 100 pages of Proust, describing in minute detail every single thought and feeling that he's ever had, is what I needed to put myself out there a little bit more. The one character that I'm actually obsessed with in this first chapter is Marcel's great aunt, who is an impeccable hater. The type of haterism that you don't come across very often. She hates Marcel's grandmother, she kind of hates Mr. Swan. She just more generally hates it when people do anything that doesn't conform to her exact views of the world. There is this one situation where we're given to understand that the younger Mr. Swan has a lot going on for himself in Paris when he lives there. On this one occasion, he is on the front page of the newspaper and everybody is discussing whether this is a good thing or a tacky thing. And Marcel's grandmother is like, I don't think it's a big deal. And the great aunt doesn't like this. When my grandmother's sisters expressed their intention of speaking to Swan about this mention in the Figaro, my great aunt advised them against it. Each time she saw in others an advantage, however small, that she did not have, she persuaded herself that it was not an advantage but a detriment, and she pitied them so as not to have to envy them. I've been thinking a lot about those last few lines and about people who have a hard time being happy for other people, and this sort of anti-fair weather friend figure that I don't know if anybody has had this type of experience, but the type of friend who is really there for you when you're going through something difficult, but once things go well for you, suddenly they disappear. And I've seen a lot of conversations about it on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. People rush to diagnose everybody like, oh, this is a narcissist. They hate you when you're doing well because they want to feel superior to you in some way or another. But I do wonder how much of it is pathological and how much is just human nature. Okay, excuse my cinematography. I just got back from the charity shop. I went to drop off some stuff that I wasn't using anymore. And on my way out, I saw this. I don't really know if you can see the title. It's called How Proust Can Change Your Life by Alain de Botton. I don't know if he's actually French. Actually, I don't know anything about Mr. de Botton, except that he writes a lot of books about life and love and the meaning of everything. So I'm very excited. I know that some people don't really take him seriously at all. And then there are other people who love his work and swear by it and its wisdom. So I'm very excited to see what this is all about. Speaking of the charity shop, I also have some frames that I wanted to show you because I was at the charity shop and I saw them, and when I say that this book lives in my head rent-free, I mean it, because I thought of a passage about Marcel's grandmother who, first of all, she cannot stand the idea of him reading bad books, so she is constantly gifting him novels, which we love. But also, she has this very romanticized idea of how everybody that she loves should be surrounded by beauty and intellectually stimulating things. And she has this vision of Marcel's room being covered in photographs of artworks and vistas from various cities from around the world. But because she doesn't consider photography to be a real art form, she always frames them in these very elaborate handmade frames, which I think is very interesting. More generally, just the idea that there is intellectual value to be had in being surrounded by beautiful things and things that people took the time to make with their own hands, which obviously it was a different time, and also she was a very rich lady, so she could afford to buy all these beautiful handmade things. And regardless of whether you have money or not, nowadays so much of the stuff that surrounds us is mass-produced and trend-based. The thing that stood out to me, though, is not so much that she wants things that are luxurious in the sense that they cost a lot of money. There's one paragraph in particular where he talks about how she just wants things to have an old look, and it doesn't really matter to her if the items are still useful or whether they are now obsolete, as long as they tell a story about how people used to live at the time when they were produced, which I thought was very interesting. And I love going to secondhand furniture stores now that we're in this house and we have so much space and we need more furniture, to just see what there is and what people used to think was beautiful and no longer do. And whenever I go to charity shops, I like looking around and try to find things that maybe I won't see anywhere else because they're not fashionable anymore. Anyways, I'm going to stop talking now and I'm just going to show them to you. The first one is this sort of desk type of frame, and it has a really cute mosaic-like detail. I don't really know what the material is, but focus please, there we go. It's like enamel, maybe, I'm not really sure. If you know, please let me know. And the other ones, there are two and they're the same, and they have this sort of bobbin detail. Is that focusing? There we go. Which I think is super interesting. And these were $6.85 each. So I got both. I think they're really cute. And I also got these two doggy prints. Look at those. They're two baby doggies. And they look like they're pages from a calendar from 1975. It's kind of sad that they only had the two, but we'll see. I might put them in these actual frames if they fit. I'm going to do a follow-up and show you where I end up putting them. Actually, I might give you a tour of this room to end the video. I feel like you've earned it, and I spend a lot of time here. This is a sort of study/home office where I do most of these videos. I feel like it makes sense to show you where you are when we're talking to each other, you know? Yeah. This is my chaise longue where I do most of my sitting and longing during the day. I got this off of Etsy, although it wasn't like a actual shop. It looked like somebody was doing a sort of estate sale online for the belongings of one person who maybe passed away. In which case, RIP to this diva. She had a lot of amazing stuff and she deserves to rest after what looked like a lifetime of slaying. This is my desk. I got this chair from a charity shop and then I painted it red, and I'm very happy with the way it looks, but unfortunately it is falling apart, so I might have to get another one soon. This is a pile of books that I'm currently reading / want to be reading very soon. I'm currently reading The English Patient, The Book of Margaret Kempe, and Life of Pi, and I'm just noticing now that there is a notebook in there as well. I don't really know why. This is a letter rack that I found at a little antique shop by my house, and I thought it was super pretty. I'm using it to store my USB sticks and hard drives and stuff because I don't really receive letters, unfortunately, but I still think it's useful and super pretty, and it makes me happy, so there it is. This is called a banker's lamp. I get a lot of questions about it whenever it appears in a video or on my Instagram. I don't remember what brand it's from, but if you type banker's lamp into Google, it will come up. The books on these shelves are a combination of books that I recently read or books that I read a while ago but I constantly refer to, so I need to have them handy, and books that I haven't read yet, especially on those two top shelves. Mostly books that get sent to me or books that people gift to me. This side table I got from a charity shop. It was white to begin with, and I just painted the legs green and the top yellow because it reminded me of a daffodil or a buttercup, and that's what I was going for. And this is the messy side of the room. I haven't really figured this out yet. There was a chair here for a few days, but then I changed my mind and I think I want some more storage. For now, it's just where I dry my hair in the morning, so stay tuned.